Good time of the day, wonderful people. In this video I'm going to demonstrate how I installed heated grips to my 2023 Suzuki V-Strom 650 XT. I watched quite a few videos on YouTube on how other people installing their grips, and in every single one I was able to find people who are destroying their OEM throttle grip and damaging their original throttle tube. I find it a bit unacceptable from my OSD point of view, hence I did some research and I found a way to make change reversible by preserving any part I was removing from the bike. Moreover, I didn't like the idea of wiring the grips all the way to the battery, which is under the seat, and the majority of the bike out there, including my V-Strom, have heated grips as an optional accessory from the manufacturer. Thus, most likely there is an unused connector for the heated grips already present, so I wanted to reuse that. Also, sorry for the poor lighting in my garage. Unfortunately, due to my personal circumstances, the only time I have to work on the bike is very late at night, and there was not enough light for the phone camera I was shooting this video on. I already purchased a bright work light, and hopefully the next batch of videos will have much better lighting. Since my V-Strom came with standard plastic hand protectors, I needed to remove them first. So right now I'm removing this plastic guard. It's not that hard, so there are basically two bolts attaching the plastic guard to the handle. As you may see in other videos on YouTube, removing the left hand grip is quite easy. You just need to have something very thin to break the glue inside the tube, and use something like WD-40 to make it easier to remove. So I found like a piece of metal from windshield wipers, and I used it to kind of separate rubber from the handle, and then I just poured some WD-40 inside, and in a minute after that I will be able to remove the grip easily. You may see that there is a lot of glue on the bar itself. You can remove it using some kind of alcohol or WD-40. Just use some kind of wipes to remove it. Instead of cutting that rubber grip on the right hand side where the throttle is, I decided to disassemble the control box for starting the bike and with the kill switch, and disconnect throttle cables from throttle tube, and this will allow me to remove the whole assembly of the throttle tube and throttle grip from the bike. I purchased a spare throttle tube from Motion Pro for Suzuki V-Strom, and I haven't tested it before I started to install it, but I hope that it will be compatible with this bike, since it basically was sold for this bike, and I will use that tube for installing my heated grips. First, you need to disconnect the bracket that secures throttle cable. It will make it easier to work with cables in the future. And now there are two bolts that holding that combination together. They both are accessible from below. So this block consists of two parts, and there is a small plastic thingy that aligns the block on the bar. And once you disconnect the throttle cables, you will be able to remove the throttle tube. Here I kind of compare Motion Pro tube to the one I removed from the bike, and they look pretty much the same. Once you replace the tube, now you need to ensure that it sits inside that combination, and then it will be a bit difficult, but you need to attach both throttle cables to the tube and verify that it actually works properly. I was a bit struggling with assembling the combination back, and the trick was that plastic thing that aligns the combination on the bar need to be positioned in a particular way. So just when you're disassembling it, just remember how it was set up, and it will be much easier to assemble it back. Since to remove and reattach a throttle cable, you need to relax it a bit using adjustments. Once you assemble it, the throttle tube and attach the throttle tube back, you will need to adjust how throttle is working. So for this reason, I start my bike and I was just removing the slack from throttle until I was quite happy with how it feels. And at this point, I just attached the bracket which was holding throttle cable back. And now I switched to the left side handle. I used rubbing alcohol just to clean it up, so it's nice and shiny. I decided not to use any glue on this side, since you will see that it's very hard to put it back. and there is no way it's going to actually slide off or rotate. I actually damaged my my skin on the right hand side, on the right hand when I was moving it all up, and I tried to heat it up just to make it easier to push forward. And the very last centimeter I was using rubber mallet to actually push it. It's not recommended for heated grips, but there was just 1 centimeter left, so I took the risk. I also was verifying constantly on both sides that brakes and clutch are not touching, or the heated grips do not interfere with any controls. This was the initial measurement of how my throttle is going to be, and that it won't interfere with the brake. Meanwhile, I discovered where the connector for heated grips is. It was taped to other wires underneath that left fairing. I started to route the cables alongside the clutch cables. I'm not going to show the whole process since I actually spent more than 3 hours figuring out how to route all the wires in a nice way. So you will see the end result. Here, this control block for heated grips, and I decided to mount it with the fuse up and use it to cable ties to attach it to the 333. I'm not really happy with the fuse being exposed to the elements, so most likely I will come up with some kind of a cap to protect it. Since I'm going to glue throttle grip to throttle tube, I was using rubbing alcohol just to remove any oil or any dirt. There was no dirt, but just to be safe, I used alcohol to wipe it off. And then used super glue. The danger with super glue is if you use it too much, it may get under the tube and glue your throttle tube to the bar, and it's not nice. This actually happened to me during this procedure. I put too much glue and it came out of the end of the throttle tube and glued it to the bar. So I had to remove the whole thing, clean up the bar and reassemble it again. But I'm not going to show it in this video. This is the end result. Since I had to install a lot of stuff after the heated grips, I needed to install bar busters. I needed to replace the levers for brake and clutch. I will finish this video on the installation of heated grips, and we'll cover the rest in next video. If you have any comments, just put it under this video. I'm happy to respond to any questions you have. and thank you for watching.